All right, guys. So Ted Cruz is planning to run for president in 2028. This raises a lot of questions. Obviously, there's a huge history between President Trump and Ted Cruz, and also some other players here like Tucker Carlson and even Nick Fuentes and Ted Cruz. I'm going to play you guys some clips with all these people, but right now, let's just dive into that story. All right, guys, so here's the story that broke on Axios today. Ted Cruz sets stage for 2028 run with Tucker jabs. So Ted Cruz has been taking a lot of shots at Tucker Carlson since he interviewed Nick Fuentes, and Ted was very pro-Israel in that Tucker Carlson interview, where Tucker basically embarrassed Ted Cruz by talking about how Cruz didn't even know the population of Iran, yet he wanted to go to war there. Let's see, the article says that Ted is laying the groundwork for 2028 by leaning into his feud with Tucker Carlson. And it goes on to say that these issues are tearing at President Trump's MAGA movement, namely ideological differences over Israel. Now, Cruz said we have a responsibility to speak out even when it's uncomfortable. He said it to Axios. And then also, they called Tucker Carlson and asked him what he thought about this. And Tucker said that it was hilarious. And he said, good luck. And he said that that good luck comment was his heartfelt view. Now, Cruz, like I said, he's been going after Carlson, it says relentlessly here. On foreign policy, he said Tucker has gone bat crap crazy and that he's gone off the rails. And now Cruz has been saying that Tucker is anti-Semitic. I think he just recently called him a coward and said that he was complicit in evil. That was when Cruz was speaking to the Republican Jewish coalition. And then last week, he was speaking to the Federalist Society, and he said that Carlson spread a poison that is profoundly dangerous. And he said that he called Nick Fuentes a little goose-stepping Nazi. And what's really interesting is that Nick Fuentes actually was really fond of Ted Cruz back in 2016 when Cruz was running. Take a listen to this clip right here of Nick Fuentes talking about Ted Cruz on his first ever show.
Coming in at fourth with 10% is Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz is the real deal. If Marco Rubio wasn't a liar, if he was a real conservative, then you would get Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a very impressive person. He went to Harvard. He went to Princeton. He was a debating champion at both. He's the youngest Solicitor General in the history of the United States and argued before the Supreme Court 9 times. This is more than any lawyer currently serving in Texas and more than any member of Congress. Now, Ted Cruz has been fighting for the Constitution his entire life. When he was 13, he was studying Bastiat, Hayek, Mises. This is a real grassroots conservative. Despite the fact that he's in the Senate, that he's technically not an outsider because he's in D.C., he's been fighting against his own party as well as the Democrats for as long as he's been in the Senate. Now, I would say he resembles a Rand Paul, conservative, for individual rights, for economic liberty, but with a stronger foreign policy. And this is important because not a lot of people are very wary to jump on the Rand Paul bandwagon because he's so weak on foreign policy. So Ted Cruz is one to watch.
All right, needless to say, I think Fuentes has clearly changed his views on Ted Cruz, but at one point he was a huge fan. Now, it also says that some of Cruz's jabs have been echoed by Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro. Obviously, Shapiro's been going at Tucker since the interview as well. But a big deal here about this happening is that top Republicans are saying that Cruz is endearing himself to powerful pro-Israel donors who are deeply angered by that Fuentes interview. And the Republican Jewish Coalition CEO, Matt Brooks, said it's definitely getting noticed, as in what Ted Cruz is doing to endear himself. They're taking note. And what's really interesting as well is that many of the donors that are going to be supporting Ted Cruz were aligned with Nikki Haley. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was not a fan of Nikki Haley. I wanted her to get nowhere near the White House. So if the same people are going to be backing Ted Cruz, that definitely gives me pause. But President Trump and Ted Cruz have a long history here. I mean, it's no surprise that they were at each other's throats in 2016. But in 2028, Vance is essentially going to be the front runner here. And both of them are going to have to be fighting to show who supported President Trump or who's against President Trump. And both Vance and Cruz have said a lot of negative things about President Trump in the past. I mean, take a listen to Ted Cruz right here on the eve of the Indiana primary on what he had to say about President Trump.
I'm going to tell you what I really think of Donald Trump. This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. And in a pattern that I think is straight out of a psychology textbook. His response is to accuse everybody else of lying. He accuses everybody on that debate stage of lying. And it's simply a mindless yell. Whatever he does, he accuses everyone else of doing. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen. Donald Trump is such a narcissist that Barack Obama looks at him and goes, "Dude, what's your problem?" But the man is utterly amoral. Let me finish this, please. The man is utterly amoral. Morality does not exist for him. It's why he went after Heidi directly and smeared my wife, attacked her. Apparently, she's not pretty enough for Donald Trump. I may be biased, but I think if he's making that allegation, he's also legally blind.
And now Cruz does nothing but sing Donald Trump's praises. So it's going to be really hard for him to out-Trump JD Vance in this case, because JD Vance is President Trump's vice president. So most of the time that person is considered to be the person that's going to take the torch and go forward, just like we saw with George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. Now, I don't know who's really going to side with Cruz over JD Vance. JD Vance is obviously younger. He's considered more of a populist candidate, and Ted Cruz is considered more of a textbook conservative. But at this point, I would also say Ted Cruz is starting to be viewed as a real neocon because of him wanting to intervene, especially on behalf of Israel. And this issue is not going away in the GOP. I think we're going to see this over and over again coming up with, should we help Israel? Should we give money to Israel? And should we get involved in wars overseas on Israel's behalf? And now, as it says here, the initial polls are showing that Vance is a big favorite in 2028. And the article goes on to mention that a lot of donors might be queasy about crossing Trump if they embrace a candidate other than Vance. But at this point, President Trump had been asked if he was supporting JD Vance in 2028, and he said that it was too early, and he has not committed to supporting Vance. But President Trump was asked what he thought about this breaking news on Ted Cruz running, and here is what President Trump had to say about that.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
There was some news this morning from an Axios report that Senator Ted Cruz was laying the groundwork for a potential 2028 presidential run. Could I get your reaction to, could you see yourself supporting Senator?
Well, he's a friend of mine. I mean, I haven't spoken to him about it. It's a little early. It's 3.25 years. That's a long time. But he's a very good guy. He's a very good friend of mine. You remember we had quite a campaign against Ted, and it worked out quite nicely. Let's see, where are we? Oh, we're in the old one. But I'm not that surprised to hear that.
Now, obviously, if President Trump wanted to take a shot at Ted Cruz there, he could have. So I do take note that he said that Ted was a friend, and he left the door open to supporting him because he could have easily shot that down. So that's something we should keep an eye on, the relationship between President Trump and Ted Cruz over these next couple years. Now, Ted Cruz was asked today about this rumor on Fox News when he was speaking with Harris Faulkner. Here was his response.
You might be making some news. Axios led its morning newsletter with this headline: Scoop, Cruz eyes 2028 run. Senator Cruz, where are you on that?
You know, reporters are going to write headlines that get clicks and get eyeballs. I got a job. It's representing 31 million Texans, and it's fighting every day for 31 million Texans. And I'll tell you right now, the wins we are getting are historic. The one big beautiful bill you were talking about just a minute ago, I was blessed to write major portions of that bill.
All right, so obviously Cruz wasn't going to announce today when this story broke that he was laying the groundwork, but I do think that it's pretty obvious that he is going to run. The only question is, how is it going to play out in Personally, I think that Cruz just doesn't have what it takes with Vance in the race. If Vance was out and maybe there was just a Rubio and Cruz and a couple other guys, but Cruz tried before, obviously he didn't make it. But at this point, Vance is seen as the natural successor to Trump. So unless there's a real rift between the relationship with Trump and Vance, I think that Vance will be the nominee in 2028. He just has a wider appeal than Cruz does. And with Trump's backing, I think it's going to be really hard to get that Trump base without having his support. But guys, if you like this video, please remember to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks, guys.